AOC. Oh boy. Turns out Tom Homan is going to be a little bit of a rival to AOC because he's formally asked the Department of Justice to investigate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That's right. There's the ongoing fight because AOC did a webinar informing migrants of their rights. And look, hey, everyone has a right. Everyone has this, right? But it's been made very clear that the Trump administration intends to follow through with its plans to go into sanctuary cities, as we all saw with Dr. Phil here in Chicago. How do you know me? How do you know me? Well, you're Dr. Phil, for Christ's sakes, man. You got a recognizable face. But here we go. Let's go and pull this up here.
Up the DOJ, what I find disturbing is that any member of Congress wants to educate people how they evade law enforcement. You can claim you're educating those constitutional rights. Okay, you can keep that claim. But what she in fact is doing is telling people don't open your door, hide in your home, don't talk to ICE. We're talking about people who are in the country illegally, committed a crime, they're a public safety threat, they've been convicted of serious crime, and they've been ordered removed by a federal judge. So it's like AOC and others don't want ICE to enforce the laws that they enacted. She's a member of Congress. Let us enforce the laws you enacted. That's what we're supposed to do.
You can't go after her. Do you think others should?
No, I think I've asked DOJ, where's that line of impediment, of interference? Now, if someone stands in your way, prevents you from arresting somebody, put your hands on you, that's impediment. But what line is telling people to hide from ICE, not open the door? Where do you cross that line on impediment? So I simply asked the Department of Justice, give us that line.
You have talked to them about this. That's what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Well, we'll see where that goes. Tom Homan, I'm out of time.
So real quick here then, because there was a little bit more where it just keeps on becoming more and more of an oof right here. Because here's where Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, this is why you fight these cowards. The moment you stand up to them, they crumble. Homan is nothing. The Fourth Amendment is clear, and I'm well within my duties to educate people over their rights, which, yes, that is true. He can threaten me with jail and call names all he wants. He's got nothing else. So let's go and pull this video up here.
First of all, I think she's, I won't go after her on
Tom, please do. Say what's on your mind. It's a holiday.
Look, she's the dumbest congresswoman ever elected to the Congress, and she proves that every day. And look, bottom line is, I can't believe any member of Congress, Republican, Democrat, Independent, would want to educate criminal illegal aliens who are in the country illegally, been convicted of a violent crime, and have been ordered removed by an immigration judge after due process at great taxpayer expense. You got a congressman or congresswoman that does not want ICE to do the job that Congress has mandated them to do and funds them to do.
Now, real quick here, because there's also been a huge fallout because of this, because recently, because of the raids that have been happening here, before anything else was taking place, it is important to note, especially in sanctuary cities, especially here in Chicago, just a quick follow-up here, but the city stopped tracking migrants as it closes the remaining shelters. The city is ending its services targeted specifically at migrants, including closing the landing zone downtown and ceasing a census count for new arrivals. Now, this was December 24. This was came out December 20th of 2024 last year, and since then, especially in the aftermath of ICE coming into Chicago with Dr. Phil, how do you know me? It's clear that there's been a huge, massive shakeup, and in turn, the Democrats, especially people like AOC or even at Chicago's mayor Brandon Johnson, don't really have a plan. They could do webinars, and that's fine. People should know what their rights are. Everybody should. That is absolutely correct. But the problem is that there's nothing else happening. There's no follow-through. And Tom Homan calling for the Department of Justice to investigate into AOC is a waste of time. I mean, AOC has done this before, but I see this as a distraction. The major problem is that right now, a lot of migrant families are either planning to leave or in turn hiding because a lot of them may not know their full-on rights. And as it's been stated before, Homan wants to expand the list. He wants to go just beyond violent criminals or people being accused of crimes. He wants to go after everyone. And the Trump administration wants to pump up those numbers. They want to put a full-on show of force and challenge the sanctuary cities. And that in turn also means Mayor Brandon Johnson coming before Congress next month in March. So there's going to be the whole talk of the sanctuary cities. And the problem with the sanctuary cities now is that a lot of their programs ended in absolute failure. Yes, there were people able to restart their lives, but for the vast majority of it, and I want to give a huge shout out to one of my good friends of the show, Jamal Green, there have been stories of these shelters being unfit for human habitation, or either that just earlier last year, where you had people proposing the idea of building a migrant shelter on a Superfund site where there's toxic chemicals and other dangerous material that could impact the person's health. And one such facility was being proposed to be built here on the south side of Chicago. The residents protested. Number one, they weren't informed about it. But number two, they were saying, don't put people on that. People will get sick. People will die. Ask me about how I know about Chicago's polluted landfill sites in the city. The south side and west side of Chicago's have a long, sad history of industrial pollution and facilitators building up these industry plants, and in turn, the people in said communities getting very sick. It's a generational problem here in Chicago, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to be ending anytime soon. I also want to pull up this video here where he reiterates the Department of Justice investigating into AOC.
Heard you talking about AOC over the weekend. Do you believe she is breaking the law?
I'll leave that up to DOJ. What I find disturbing is that any member of Congress wants to educate people how they evade law enforcement. You can claim you're educating those constitutional rights. Okay, you can keep that claim. But what she in fact is doing is telling people don't open your door, hide in your home, don't talk to ICE. We're talking about people who are in the country illegally, committed a crime, they're a public safety threat, they've been convicted of serious crime, and they've been ordered removed by a federal judge. So it's like AOC and others don't want ICE to enforce the laws that they enacted. She's a member of Congress. Let us enforce the laws you enacted. That's what we're supposed to do.
You can't go after her. Do you think others should?
No, I think I've asked DOJ, where's that line of impediment, of interference? Now, if someone stands in your way, prevents you from arresting somebody, put your hands on you, that's impediment. But what line is telling people to hide from ICE, not open the door? Where do you cross that line on impediment? So I've simply asked the Department of Justice, give us that line.
You have talked to them about this. That's what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Well, we'll see where that goes.
Now, of course, what's the big takeaway from this? Unfortunately, this is going to be a distraction. Everyone's going to be paying attention to the drama of Homan versus AOC. Now, overall, this is something that I want to see what's going to happen in that sit down before Congress, Mayor Brandon Johnson and some of the other mayors of the sanctuary cities talking to Congress about the effectiveness of sanctuary cities and why they're a good thing and why the policies are good. But the results and actions since then, especially in terms for the migrant shelters, has led to a complete disaster here in Chicago. I want to give a huge shout out to the Jimmy Dore Show for playing a couple segments of our coverage of City Hall in regards towards people yelling and screaming at Mayor Brandon Johnson, families who've been living here in Chicago because they are upset with the overall policies and the migrant shelters. When that was first being proposed, Hardlands Media asked a lot of the, people who were running it or protesting for it, is there a plan? Do you have a long-term solution? Is the city able to afford this? Can we take care of this? Are you concerned about Trump coming back into office? Because there was a lot of euphoria, especially with people after the 2020 election thinking, yes, this is it. Donald Trump is going to be defeated. Everything's going to be fine. Let's keep pushing forward. Let's not think of our actions. But nobody had a plan. There was no plan. And residents of Chicago have been pushing back against Mayor Brandon Johnson. And for the first time ever, we're seeing a full-on collapse of the Democrat machine. Most notably with the surprising guilty conviction. I'm surprised he was found guilty. Maybe it's because I'm so jaded by Chicago and Illinois politics with Michael Madigan. For those who don't know, he was the longest serving House Speaker in Illinois. And while he is not associated with anything with the sanctuary cities, he is part of that Democrat machine, as is every single politician in Chicago. the Democratic machine hums along and has a long, sad history of corruption. And because of the actions of Mayor Brandon Johnson, we're seeing that machine starting to fall apart. Cracks are happening. And possibly for the 2027 election, we could witness another mayor being a one-term mayor here in Chicago. As for AOC and Tom Homan, these two are going to be at a war with each other. And all it is going to be for show. All the while, people are being used as pawns. People are being pushed around, moved around. As soon as the first migrants came to Martha's Vineyard, I think we all came down to the conclusion. As soon as they were kicked out of Martha's Vineyard, that was the overall plan that was going to happen if Trump was going to come back into office, because the migrant shelters are going to be open, but then everyone's going to be kicked out. When you are in a position of power, especially like people like AOC, and you're screaming all of this change and optimism, and I get it, we should feel that way. But if you have no solid plan, no real follow through, people will get hurt, people will suffer, and there are consequences to these actions. Alas, AOC and Tom Homan will be fighting for our entertainment.